So hello everyone, welcome. I'm here with Krishna Vajra, and we're going to say a few words about the retreat that's coming up in Glastonbury. So this retreat is going to be the 15th to the 17th of September, with one full day of practice, and then uh, the first day will be an introduction. We'll arrive, we'll connect, we'll start to move into some of the practices. The second day will be a full day of practice, and then the last day we'll be practicing up until lunchtime and a little into the afternoon before departing. So, Krishna Vajra, lovely to have you here. And maybe you'd like to say where you are at the moment. It's a really beautiful place.
Hello, yes, I'm in a very joyous place. I'm in Austria on a lake in the Alps near Tyrol. So, one of the best place to send blessings to you all for this upcoming retreat,
Good.
upcoming inner joy retreat. Yes, yes, yes. There will be this full, like Nick was saying, there will be this full day. Although we will start already working and activating in the first day till the last day. This retreat is like an activation. So we are activating. This practice is a practice of awakening this inner joy that vibrates all the time in our body. So since as the blood pump in our veins and our breath goes up and down all the time, uh, we have this inner joy inside of us, but it's so close to us that many times we fail because we are to recognize it because we are so much projected either on outside world or in the concept of our thought, in the story of our thoughts.
Mm.
So it's an activation because through this breathing exercises, pleasure energy activation, sexual energy activation, and breath work and movement, we are rising the volume of these inner joys. We are rediscovering this inner joy, not through our mind, but simply by pay attention of the signal that comes out from our body.
Mm.
And so it's an activation because it reactivates this energy, is reprogramming this energy in our system. And then everyone will come out of the retreat with a very short practice that can be done between 5 and 15 minutes every day to keep this energy running, keep this inner awakening running.
Mm.
And with a few tricks on how to then integrate this practice in everyday life.
Mm.
Because yes, it's good like meditation, it's good like to set a few minutes of our meditation, but then we have all the other. If we do like 50 minutes, we have the other 23 hours and 45 minutes of life. So the real deal is when we can see that through our meditation, through our breathwork exercises, we are simply noticing and setting the tone of something that we can notice and we can cultivate whatever we are doing.
Mm.
Especially at the beginning, anytime we encounter a situation in which we experience joy or pleasantness.
Mm.
Through this technique, we learn how to um, keep this pleasantness in our body. We learn not that this pleasantness is dispersing, but this pleasantness is supporting us to find this inner joy that is ever present, that doesn't depend from external situation, doesn't depend from our breath work, it doesn't depend from the things that we eat, it doesn't depend by our partner, etc., etc.
Mm.
It's
But
quite
yeah,
profound, quite profound.
it sounds very powerful, and I know from working with a few people who have spontaneously had this experience where my understanding is that um, this experience is like bringing the orgasmic energy or even the in a man the semen sort of from that base up through the body and into the mouth. And I've had one a massage client who experienced this and suddenly was saying to me, it's like I can taste cum in my mouth. And so like, and he was having the ejaculation within that moment of connection in the massage, but then nothing came out, and instead there was this sense of him tasting something in his mouth. And after that, he then went into an experience of non-duality where, for a short time, the sense of self and other dissolved, and he was in this very beautiful space of recognizing that, like, he was looking at me and saying, "But we're not separate." And there's like, where am I? And in fact, he had to then start to come out of it because he started to feel that he was going into a void, which for his ego felt scary, but was also, as a non-duality practitioner, he was saying, this is so exciting because this is exactly what I've been reading about and studying, and for the first time I really feel I've experienced it. Now, having said that, I think it's something I thought it was interesting to clarify, and from listening to you talk and the questions I've had about the retreat, this is single work. We're not going to be working with each other. It's clothed, and often people hear tantra and they immediately assume tantra means it's going to be sexual in some way or involve genital touch, and I know it's none of that, but you can just clarify exactly, you know, how is this tantra? And it's not sort of neo tantra. It's We're not going to be running around naked, massaging each other, as delightful and delicious as that can be in its own context. But that's not what this workshop is.
Yes, yes. So we can start. We can start from the experience of your friend. Yes, this is really what it's all about. It's about in Buddhist tradition. There's a certain tradition that says that only the mind of bliss can meditate on emptiness, because the mind of bliss and emptiness are the same things. So this is the path of metta, the path of metta to recognize this non-duality and to be open enough to withstand this profound experience that expand has till the limits of space. So that's why all these techniques, these central channel techniques, are applied. And center channel, because is really the core, the center of the body is really the core of our experience, and the center of the body is very much connected with our genitals and our mouth. They are a little bit like the two poles of the center of our experience, with our heart and the belly in the middle. So as we know, the lower part of the center channel in this tradition is called the shankini. And when it's activated, and it means when it's really open, it gives the spontaneous bliss, sahajananda. This spontaneous bliss is then linked with all the other channels of the body and is brought up, so it saturates our whole experience. So in the context of an ejaculation, when the channels of the person are very much open, then you can have an experience like this. So this is something that is my experience of others, and in my understanding is that like within our body there are like channels that are really contemplated as channels, but they are spaces. Generally are the spaces in between tissues, the spaces in between fascias. And many times liquids can pass through this, As they pass through this, they maybe lose the exact consistency of the sperm, like he would be ejaculated. But some essences of that substance is coming up. It's coming up from these spaces. So this is my understanding. Although
Mm.
these practices we really come into places of reality in which like the density of our experience um, or the scientific understanding of our experience give more space to something more profound or more spacious than that. So yes, why in this tantric tradition, of course, we have couple work, massage work, but generally this method comes a little bit later on the path. Why? Because the experiences that can arise through such intense bliss, going into the central channel and sharing this experience with someone, can sometimes create problems of relationship, in the sense that, as your friend says, like, oh yes, it's like, I who am I, so one can come in contact with a psychic and psychological experience that transcend the boundaries of our personality. And then many times one can get lost in stories or images or hallucinations or anything that can come out from these profound and intense experiences. So learning how to generate this experience, maybe with less intensity, but generating this experience just from within ourselves and contextualize it into the right view, allows us to find the inner balance and inner peace. And then when we are engaging with another person that has developed the same quality, then we can go deeper, and we are not stopped by psychological aspect or emotional aspect. So we can access a deeper level of wisdom, deeper level of compassion, deeper level of potentiality to benefit others that lies outside the boundary of our identity and personalities. That lies within the infinite Buddha nature that is present within each one of us.
Mm.
It's also, there is also an advantage by learning how to generate profound bliss from within ourselves without the help of anyone, is that it gives us a lot of strength and confidence. Because when I can go around and relate with other people without the need of other people, then we became free person. And when we are free and full of joy, then we can really be of help to others.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
this is the main philosophy of this.
Mm.
But of course, if someone is already engaging in neo-tantric practices, by learning the view, the context, and the solo technique of these practices, then wow, like you will see that your neo-tantra practice will skyrocket, and it will be imbued with a blessings and a meditative stability that generally, just by practicing this part technique without, will not be present.
Very beautiful, yes. So, given that, who would you say the retreat is for? Some people might hear that and feel, well, I'm a beginner, or I haven't even done any Tantra practice. Is this for me? Other people will be maybe highly experienced and they'll be feeling, how is this going to speak to the experience I already have? Where do you see the retreat landing? Who is it for?
Is my philosophy that this retreat is for everyone. Why? Because here is not about a skill. Here is about just doing some. The technique itself are very simple, so they don't require being very stretched or things like this. So it's very simple. What it requires sitting on the ground, even with a cushion, cross-legged on the ground. That's the thing. So they are very simple, the movement. These are breathing techniques, so everyone can breathe. So it's for everyone. And why is for everyone? It's for everyone because this bliss, this tigle, this essence inside the life force is already present in everyone. So people shouldn't think that this is something that comes from their learning or comes from their skill. This is something gathering all together, learning a technique that show you something that you already have. So having said that, everyone will pick up from the retreat what they need, and depends a lot on the intention and the motivation why they come. So generally speaking, when people come into the retreat, a week before, I'm sending a preparation email to all retreatants, and in which everyone will need to have an intention of why, like setting up the motivation, why doing this technique and learning this technique. And this can be really anything, because our life force is a little bit like the fuel of our life. And this life force, this joyful essence of our life force, is what in Buddhism we call bodhicitta, or compassion, or mind of awakening. So if we can imbue anything in our life with this, then it becomes more fun, more pleasant, and more successful. And it will be as more as benefit for others. So that's why, yes, it's profound, it's depth, it's deep, but it's for everyone. Although there is one thing that is really a requirement for the people who come, and it's curiosity. Curiosity. Joyful curiosity, you know? It's like we can tune a little bit like when we are a kid, then we are curious about, I'm curious about this game. You know, let's try to play this game, because at the end we are gonna having fun in the retreat. It's profound, it's meditative, it's serious, but we are gonna have fun. So it's really about learning how to contact joy, and especially learning how to stabilize joys when experiences that are unpleasant take away our focus. You know, when there is an unpleasant experience, when unpleasant relationship with someone, bad weather, and things like this, this vibration shift our focus, and there is very easy to go into complain or things like this. While actually, in our experience, there is always, even externally, something that we can appreciate. Bring our appreciation. And when we appreciate something, of course, we feel joy. Okay, so we learn, and the joy that we feel, we don't feel it outside of us, but it's actually something that we feel in our body. Maybe some people feel it in the head, some people more here, some people more in the eyes, but it's an experience that we have in the center of the body. So yes, we learn also if there are some unpleasant experiences that comes out from our channels, or like the muscle memory that we have. As these experiences are unblocked by these exercises, we are able to meet them with compassion. For example, like a mother that holding a child. A mother that holds a child, the child is crying, the child is happy, the mother is always full of love. So here doesn't mean like taking a drug that we don't feel anymore unpleasant things, but there is a part of us that becomes so blissful and so compassionate that can hold without being swinged by the crying of the baby, basically. And then when the baby is even more happy, then wow, even better, you know.
Yes.
Milarepa, a great yogi that attained enlightenment through this blissful technique, he was really exposing himself in terrible situation, like going in the mountain in the cold, you know, and being in isolation for months and months, you know, without talking to anyone. But he was always joyful and happy. And he was saying, it's like, oh, when all stuff is coming up, clash is coming out in my meditation, I feel good. When there is not one illness inside, I feel even better. So everything bliss, everything become bliss. And then, of course, if someone likes it and dedicates himself, maybe someone dedicates himself half an hour every day, in half a year, incredible transformation, you know. So yeah, I've been seeing this transformation along people who study and practicing with me. So I'm very confident about it.
Yes. Wonderful. And that brings up the question of, when people complete this, I know you were saying that people will be given a practice that can be done for, say, 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Yes.
So in order for people to really see the benefits of this, how will people best incorporate it into their practice or their life after the retreat?
These are generally six breath hold every day that you will understand what they do after receiving this activation, initiation. And then there will be, along with this, there will be guideline into how to integrate a pleasant experience. And what are the most pleasant experience that we can have in life? It's either dancing, either eating, having sex, or going in nature, maybe making art, you know. So
Mm,
any type of, there are guidelines to integrate this awareness of our energy system whenever we engage in any pleasant experience.
mm,
And this is the practice at the beginning. When we really understand that, then we are also ready to tap into this pleasantness, even when we feel an experience that is unpleasant. But at the beginning, we need to stabilize this awareness of this inner pleasure that is vibrate, especially in the center of our body, and then eventually spread all over till our skin. Um, so yeah, there will be these guidelines. So people are encouraged, at least after the retreat, for 20 days to 1 month to practice every day. And then they can decide if it's something that is really for there or not. In any case, every around month and a half, um, this like the people who participate at this retreat have access at Zoom classes. Normally, it's a master class that I do that lasts 2 to 3 hours every 1 month and a half, in which I will give additional teachings. Then there will be a Telegram group in which is already present. There are all international students that are there, and anyone can ask questions about their own practice. There will be maybe more material to share. Maybe someone wants to read more about it, and so there will be more material to understand the root of this technique, where it comes from, Vajrayana Buddhism, Tantrayana Buddhism, because these are Tantrayana Buddhist technique, and they are very profound. And if someone is interested, he can also go deeper into that path. That is uh, the path to complete illumination. It's not a joke. With this technique, with the right context and with the right guidance, this technique can lead to ultimate enlightenment, any beings who practice with sincerity and right motivation.
mm. Yes, amazing. And for those who aren't familiar with it, what would you say enlightenment?
Quality that I can, this is one of the quality that I can give. And many times also me talking with like lamas or like gurus, and maybe sometimes they don't, they say, how can you teach this to anyone? Because many times they only teach this technique to people who are already initiated into tantric Buddhism and things like this. And I think this is my quality and my capacity to be able to bring this compassionate gift to anyone, Buddhist, non-Buddhist.
So I'm really looking forward to this whole experience, and uh, it's really exciting. And I know from learning from you and starting to apply some of these practices, there's definitely a feeling in my own body of an increased sense of warmth, of vitality, bliss. Um, and in fact, even if I'm touching someone else, not in a sexual way, but say there's been people at my classes, my meditation classes, and there was a man I was speaking to who I was feeling very fond towards. He'd been helping, he'd led the class the week before, so he'd stepped in and held the space for me. So I was very grateful to him. And we were chatting, and uh, he has a slight physical disability that meant he was sitting on the chair. His body is quite in a lot of pain a lot of the time. And I was kneeling down beside him. I had my hand resting on his leg as I was chatting to him and just saying a few things about appreciating what he'd done the previous week. And I had a message from him saying afterwards, just when you touched me, it felt so amazing. And I felt this warmth in your body, but it was coming into my body. So there's something about as we do this practice, we're waking up uh, something which I'm sort of familiar with from Reiki, from a different sort of tradition, where there's that sense of becoming a channel, a conduit, where you're inviting this energy, which isn't my energy. It's not an ego sort of like, oh, look at me, I've got this amazing energy. It's this sense of like, how can I open and clear this channel so that it can become more effective at allowing the beauty of this blissful nature of existence to just flow through and flow into others.
Yeah, this is really so when we learn this technique, we if we are like a therapist or someone who work with others, first we will be very energetic and will not be depleted. um and then all these aspects are naturally like developing, these are the fruit of the practice, like everything is set, the roots are fine, the branches are fine, the trunk is fine, then spontaneously the flowers and the fruit are coming out of us. So when we truly recognize this inner blissfulness within our life force, then this blissfulness is in every life force. You can then start touching a leaf and recognize the pleasantness of the life force in everything. And you can touch another person's body and you can do it. Sometimes, for example, my grandma, she had 19 years old, she cut, and then, oh, this is 4 weeks is not healing, then I touch, and then I really sense, oh, there is a lot of pleasant life force here there is no more life force. And then just like by touching and then tuning into this pleasantness, I just like bring the life force back into the. Then I give a little bit suggestion to her. It's like in 4 days will be healed, and then it healed in 4 days. But this is something that comes out of the practice naturally, and comes out by really being in attune with our Buddha nature. That is actually not ego. But is also our Buddha nature is something that we should be rejoiced. And in Tantra, we use is the path to use any experience. Everything becomes sacred. So we learn to recognize and appreciate any emotion, even the pride, But when we recognize, when we look at the pride to the lens of this pleasantness, then we recognize, oh, I'm so good, full of this energy. And look, all other beings are also so good, full of this energy. So many times ego can be like, oh, I'm better than others. But I also feel ego is like, oh, I'm so small than others. It's kind of like reversed ego. So in Tantra, this is called, in Tibetan, it's called Laji Namgyal, the pride of the divinity. I'm proud to be a Buddha because I recognize the Buddha in each and every one.
Mm.
Then even deeper, when the spiritual realization goes even deeper, then you will find this compassion, everything, even in inanimate things, even in cold things. So this means total liberation, when you really recognize the essence of the bodhicitta of the compassion in everything, even
Yeah,
on a very ugly place.
yes, yes. And this for me is one of the beauties in Buddhism. So for people who aren't familiar with some of the terminology, so Buddha nature, my understanding And what sort of inspires me in my own practice is the Buddhist teaching is that when we seek pleasure in that which is created, formed, that depends on uh, various sources coming together to bring something into being, then the very nature of that thing is that it's impermanent. It's of the nature at some point to dissolve. You know, our body has been formed through sperm and egg. It's sustained by food. Uh, Without food and water, the body will soon die, and at some point, the body itself is perishable and will decay. That's why we have a skull. The Buddhist sort of practitioners often go to cremation grounds to remind themselves that, well, this vessel that consciousness is inhabiting right now, this vessel is impermanent, and everything around us is impermanent and of the nature to decay. But Buddhism has this teaching, which Vajra was referring to, of Buddha nature, and Buddha nature exists because enlightenment, the state of awakening, is the one thing that is outside of time and space. We don't create enlightenment. If enlightenment were created through an act of will, then it means it would also be something that would dissolve. But enlightenment is the state of thusness. It's our true nature. It's the nature of everything, and it's imbuing and around and within everything. So we wake up into, or we relax into our true nature, into Buddha nature, into our enlightened state. And that's why, as Vajra is saying, from a Buddhist perspective, we don't look and think, well, I'm highly attained Buddhist, and these people haven't even got there yet. We a Buddha, and I'm not a Buddha, but a Buddha would look around and just see, ah, all of these beings
Are
uh,
Buddhas.
are Buddhas, and they're lost in this sleep of thinking that they're individual entities that are fighting each other or trying to get somewhere or trying to have power over each other. But actually, each and every one of these entities is a Buddha. And when they wake up to their true nature, their Buddha nature, then they will all realize that that's what they are. So this practice is inviting us to really connect with that energy of bliss. And again, Buddhism says that the Buddha, when he was talking about the enlightened state, he said it has two characteristics: bliss and wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, amazing, amazing. That's it. That's it. And why the tantric teachings are so precious and are so accessible, because many times when we hear about these stories like something beyond, something is impermanent, it seems so far away from us. But the tantric teachings and seems very much like a philosophical things, a realization that comes through the mind. And the tantric teachings allows us to embody this, because we are not interested on a particular state of the body in Tantra. We are interested in the nature of the body. So this pleasantness, this blissfulness that we experience through these exercises is not something that comes out from the exercises. The exercises simply awaken us to something that is there all the time, because it's the essence of our life force. What is our life force? Our life force is everything that moves in the body, is the act of constant movement in the body, is our breathing, is the pumping of our blood. When we lose the breathing or the pumping of our blood, we lose our life force. When through the exercises we learn how to really feel our breath and really feel the pumping of our blood and the variation of this inner pressure that the breath gives, then we notice how actually does this feel. And actually we learn to understand that this feels very, very good. It feels good being alive. And we are alive all the time since we have remembered, since we have born. So we are interested not on a particular blissful state, but we are interested to discover the natural bliss of being. That is not some invention, it's something that we can really tangibly feel in the body. So this becomes real in a sense, because the most real things that we have in our body, right? is the material experience of our body. So when this becomes real, then we can say that our spiritual understanding is a real one.
Yes. And it's also, it takes us into what the Buddha called the middle way. So we're neither rejecting the body, but nor are we seeing the body as something to sort of as our only refuge. It's like we're recognizing the middle way, which is that I don't have to punish the body. I don't have to go into practices of asceticism and denial. Also, I don't have to indulge my body. I can just sort of rest in this middle space where I enjoy the joy, the pleasure, the bliss that can be felt through my body, but that can be a doorway opening to this deeper bliss of the unborn, the uncreated, the sort of spacious nature of consciousness that doesn't in, inhabit a body, but that we're experiencing as embodied beings. So for me, this is very important because my first 10 years or so of practice was very much about trying to escape from my body. And I
Mm.
actually became very disembodied. And in fact, I was really saved by my teacher at the Thai forest tradition monastery I went to, where he got me starting to rebuild all the dry stone walls. It was in Northumberland in northern England, which has a lot of walls built of rocks. And he said to me, you know, you're such a space cadet. You're so out of touch with yourself. He says that just stop meditating. Apart from when we meditate as a community together, don't do it on your own. And I want you to rebuild the dry stone walls. So I was out there in the fields picking up rocks, making piles of rocks, gathering them together, and then looking at the wall, and there's this interesting interaction with the wall because you have to see the space. You see, once you've put a few rocks together, you then have to see the space that's then left, and then you find a rock that sits in that space. And so it's both physical and it's also really sort of looking at the space, finding a form that will fit into that space, and gradually the form of the wall grows and takes shape again. And that really just the weight of, and you know, these rocks are heavy. And so it's like just the process of rebuilding that wall also rebuilt a connection with my body. And I think some of us, there's a risk, I had it, of spiritual bypassing, where we hear these teachings and it's like, oh, I'm just enlightened consciousness or I'm Buddha nature. And then you've already touched on it where you've been talking about, well, we meet the messiness of ourselves as well in this practice. But there is a risk that we go, well, I'm Buddha nature and like, oh, but I'm feeling anger or I'm feeling depressed. And then we either think, well, I'm failing because I should be Buddha and yet I'm feeling depressed or I'm failing because or we go like, well, I'm just sort of like I've realized non-duality now, so I never feel anger. That's you thinking that I'm feeling angry, you're just projecting onto me because you're at a lower level of evolution, but really no, and then we gaslight someone
There's
around the
some
fact that we're actually angry with them.
dissociation, like this disembodied meditation can very much lead to dissociation.
Mm,
Seeing very much, not always, but yes, many times. Well, when we study Vajrayana Buddhism and Vajrayana Tantra, there are like when we really get into that path, there are like a few something that is called preliminary practice. Preliminary practice are a little bit like a meditation that set up the foundation for this deeper path, in which then we can engage in all these channel practices and essence practice. And one is the preciousness of the human body. So the human body has a particular nervous system that is the best vessels for enlightenment and spiritual understanding. The Buddha, before incarnating as Gautama, he was living as a god in Tushita heaven, in one of the heavens. And then he had to take rebirth as a human to attain full enlightenment, because the human body is something that even the gods they aspire to attain, because the higher level of spiritual realization can come through this body. And Yes, so it's really when we land into the body, we can really like unify the heaven and earth, you know.
Mm.
Uh, then the middle is coming. So absolutely, absolutely. And I think you talk about like the refuge, for example, in the when we go then a little bit deeper into the tantric teaching, that we go into these inner alchemy teachings or these completion stage practices, as they are called. The refuge changes. So normally the refuge, we take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. So the Buddha is the teacher, is the Buddha that teach the way for liberation for suffering. Then there is the Dharma, that is the way, is the corpus of the teachings that we need to apply. And there is the Sangha, that there is all the community of other practitioners that helps. So this is the common basic understanding. But the ultimate understanding is that the Buddha is our nature, is something that is in each one of us. This is the Buddha. So when we take refuge, we rely on it. So when we have difficulties, we rely on this. So we rely on this nature, on this wisdom that is inside of us. Then what is the Dharma? The Dharma are all the mechanism and the law of this nature. This nature has mechanism and flow and some sort of like harmony, some sort of like laws, like laws of the physics. You know, if you do this, this happen. If you do this, these other things happen. And this is the Dharma, is the law of nature. So in the sense, even the law of physics can be seen as the Dharma. Okay, and then there is the Sangha. The Sangha is all the beings that walks in harmony with this law of nature. So the will, the Dharma is also seen as a will, you know. So if we and the will is the direction of the law. The will turns in the direction. If we go against the direction of the will, then we experience dukkha, or this suffering, this unpleasantness. Something is wrong. No matter what we do, there is some unsatisfaction within us, because we don't align ourselves to the flow, to the law of the Dharma. Okay, so when we talk about our body, we can see these three elements, the three jewels, we can see it inside our body. What is the Buddha? The Buddha is the essence of our life force, is the Tigle. And the Buddha is our baseline blissfulness of being alive. From there, we find the Buddha. Then what is the Dharma? The Dharma is our center, is the channel, especially our center channel, because it's within the center of our body that we find the most blissfulness. And then what is the Sangha? The Sangha is what supports and helps us to get in there, helps us to get into the pathway of the Dharma, when we can feel the Buddha in this blissfulness. This is our breathing, our wind, our inner energy, everything that moves into the body. So the all Buddhist path can be done and can be understood by simply looking into our body. And this is incredible and amazing. And that's why we learn since the beginning in Tantra to be extremely grateful for the preciousness of our human life.
Beautiful, thank you. And that's a lovely place, I think, to draw the conversation to a close, and to just say, for anyone who wants to join us, you can email me, and I'll be organising bookings. Depending on where this is being hosted, you may well be able to see a link to Krishna Vadra's site, and where there are details of the retreat, and then there's a booking form there where you can submit your interest. Or maybe
Yes,
you simply take, sorry, say that again.
join us, will be amazing. It
Yes,
will be very
join us.
magical. We are also in Glastonbury. Glastonbury is such a power spot, so I'm really happy to give this initiation there.
Yes, yes, yes. It's going to be very special. The venue is beautiful. Um, it's very much connected to nature. There are sort of gardens and nature all around. It's a space used by lots of different practitioners. spiritual practitioners. So the space itself will be imbued with this whole sense of all the other practices that have taken place there. And it's the first time we're going there. We're hoping to make this maybe a home for doing some more of these. Um, this is for some of you, depending on when you see this or hear this, it may be short notice to when the retreat takes place. And if you can't join us this time, or maybe asked to connect in, follow us, or follow Krishna Vajra, or go onto a mailing list, and there will be more of these types of workshops. So if you've heard any of this and you thought, oh, I can't make that, but I'd love to do more, then do still connect with us, because then we can let you know when there are more. And Krishna Vajra also does one-to-one tuition, so you can also connect with him, possibly about doing something through Zoom. If you're watching or listening to this from outside of the UK, it's still possible to connect in with him. I run individual coaching sessions based on mindfulness and my own sort of experience of connecting into my body. So between us, you might well find that there are ways of connecting and working, even if you can't make it to the workshop itself. So thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope there's some things there you're taking away and are of value to you. Thank you, Krishna Vajra, for sharing all of that, and thanking the earth, our mother, and that sustains us and all of her children. And let us all recognize that we are all this connected family rather than different beings fighting and competing against each other.